What is going on, my fellow web developers? My name is Tyler Potts, and in today's tutorial we are going to learn how you create a JavaScript stopwatch. I originally, for one of my first ever videos, I created a timer app, which was pretty much a stopwatch, where you click start, stop and reset. Now this is a really cool tutorial, however it's very outdated now, and how I built that before isn't really very modern and the code isn't that great. So I'm doing a revised version in 2021, and as you can see, here's the UI. This is super zoomed in because, you know, you can do it this size or you can do it this size, up to you. Let's zoom in a little bit more. 300% seems about fine. So this is our stopwatch. What we can do is we can click start and it will start counting up. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then we can stop it, which will just pause essentially. It's not stop, it's pause. And basically that'll just pause it on whatever time it is. We click start again and it will continue. 7, 8, 9 and 10. Stop. Yes, stopped it on 10. Look at me, pro. Anyway, you can see there, and as it gets up to 60 seconds, and this will reset to 0, and this will go to 1 minute, and then this will start counting up again, and if this gets to 60, this will go to 1, and you can get up to like 99999 hours. I mean, you can get as many hours as you want. I ain't capped at anything, but you get what I'm saying. So this is what we're building, and also, guys, reset your timer if you need to, and start again. And there you go. So this all works, and it all works. You can stop, start, reset, however you want to do it. So guys, without further ado, let's get into the code. Did I forget to mention that you can also go get this repository? So if you don't want to have to watch this boring video, I recommend you do, because I'll explain what I'm doing. But if you don't want to watch it, then you can go check out the code here and try and learn from the code here. Thank you for checking out my code repository place. Let's carry on. Okay guys, so as you can see, we have a blank folder with just this index.html, which is also blank. We're going to create two more files, a CSS so we can style our HTML, and also a main.js so we can add some functionality to it. Now we no longer need this sidebar, so goodbye. Okay, so inside of our index.html, if you're using VS Code, you can do ! and hit tab, and that's going to give you this boilerplate code. If you're not using Emmet or Visual Studio Code, then you probably will need to write this out manually. Once you've done that, let's carry on. So in here, we'll give it any name. Let's say Stopwatcher, because I'm cool like that. Never quote me ever again. Link, we're going to go to main.css. So we're going to write up our main CSS. We've got to make sure it's linked. You know, we've got to have some beautiful styles. Now inside our body, we're going to add our main.js script. Now to check these are both working, let's just go here and say body, background color, background, and let's just say pink. And then refresh, and there you go, that's pink. Now in here we can just say alert, pink, everything's pink. Now hit refresh, and there you go, that is also working. Alright, so let's clear both of these again, and then let's go back in our HTML, and let's actually get our markup going. So this markup's going to be straightforward. We're going to have a watch diff. Inside that watch diff, we're going to have the, excuse me, go away. We're going to have a time diff. And then inside of our timer, we're just going to say 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, just like that. So it looks pretty cool. We're then going to get our controls, and in here we're going to have buttons times 3. So button times 3. With an ID. So buttons times 3 with an ID of start. Now hit tab, and let's just break these down because this looks ugly. And the second one is going to be stop, and the final one is going to be reset. Now let's give them in here. Let's say start, stop, and reset. There we go. So we have our 3 primary buttons here. Hopefully you can see this pretty well. So there we go. Let's split this up just so you can see. Let's break it all down. There you go. So we've got a watch container which will hold everything. We have our timer and our actual controls here. So let's go and start this up. So if we refresh on the right, you can see it's now all set there, but it looks kind of ugly. So we are going to head over to our CSS, and we're going to write some really awesome CSS. We're going to be using CSS Variables. So if you do not know what CSS Variables are, they allow you to store some data or some properties inside of a variable like this. And the color we're going to be using is DC. You know what? We'll just say crimson. We're going to use crimson for our primary. I'm feeling it. If you guys aren't feeling it, then, you know, that's your problem. We're then going to have a 1F2 9-3C. This is basically a nice little dark, and then we're going to have a dark color because we want a slightly darker version. I know my naming structure is great. Please name this something better, like darker or darkest, or maybe name this one not so dark. Who knows? And then light, we're going to have a light color, and we'll just name this F3, F4, F6. I think that gives us a nice color. It's been a long time since I used it. Yeah, it looks good. I don't know if I'm even going to use it. There we go. Now we want to target everything, and we want to say box sizing border box. Thank you, border box. We don't want to say margin 0, and we want the font family of everything to be Fire Sans, because I'm obsessed with that font and I'm never going to stop using it. Now if we refresh, you can see everything's looking slightly more fabulous. And we're going to go down to our body. So the body tag, what we want to do in here is we want to set a back. Don't tell everyone what I want you to do. Copilot, deactivate, go away. Just globally, right now, you're going. Bam. Okay, we're writing this out ourselves. We're going to say background. We're just going to say far dark. So this is how we use a CSS variable. So you know we store these up here. Now we can reuse them anywhere we want in our code. We can then say color far light, which is going to be our text color. So now if we refresh, you can see we have inverted our color scheme, which is nice. Now we want to get that watch HTML. So in here, you see we created this container. So we need to do some magic with this. I lie, it's really basic CSS. For me, of course, for starters, you know, it couldn't be quite complex. But we're just going to text align everything center. We're then going to say background color, and we're going to say far dark, because we want it to be darker. We then want the width to be about 100%, but then we want a max width of 360 pixels. That sounds about right. It's just about mobile width. We're then going to say margin. We'll give it full rem above and then auto because we want to center it. So what we're doing here is we're setting a max width and then we're centering it inside. So there you go. That looks centered and nice. And we're also giving it full rem on top and bottom just so there's some space around it. So it's not all cooped up. Let's then go underneath margin and let's add some padding because kind of looks kind of boring right now. We're going to add 1 rem, 2 rem, 1 rem, 2 rem. And there we go. Let's hit refresh. And that's looking pretty good. We then want to go from our padding and just add a border radius. We want to round those edges, set them at 1 rem, and there you go. They're now rounded. So that's looking, you know, it's looking spicy and fresh. Let's now get our time element. And inside of our time element, we just want to make that bigger. Let's just say 5 rem. Let's go crazy. 5 rem. There you go. Filling out our box like it should do. Looking good. But I don't like the font weight. So we're going to set the font weight to be about 300. Hit save. And there we go, that's looking a little better. And then we're just going to justify content, margin bottom 1 rem as well to push down these little buttons here. So they're slightly further away from this, making it look pretty good. Now let's scroll down and underneath our time, we then got our controls. So we have a bunch of different elements. Our controls are one of the most important ones. So we need to make these look really good. Let's flex it. So display flex will align them all next to each other. Obviously, they're all next to each other right now. But I just wanted to add that little bit of extra security. We're going to align them center so they all line up. And I'm just going to justify content center as well. So the reason I'm aligning them, you can see that actually move there. The reason I'm doing this, like they're already sat pretty much how we need them. But what I wanted was for these to be sat there all the time. So if the screen got smaller, I don't want them dropping underneath each other. I want them to just shrink and grow in one row. So that's why I'm doing that, in case anyone was wondering. We're then going to get our controls and we're going to go over to our button now. So the button is going to take some pretty cool style. We're going to set the appearance to none. This just resets all the styling everything else adds. We then need to reset the background too. The border needs to be none, and also the outline needs to be none. We need user select off. Now, what this does is you can highlight things in websites. You can highlight things. You can see I can highlight those buttons, but now if we refresh, I can no longer highlight those buttons. Now they look kind of ugly because, you know, they're not the right color and they don't really work. But what we're going to do is, we also need a cursor off pointer here. So let's do a cursor off pointer first. And then we want the color to be our far light. We then want our background color to basically be our far off primary. There we go. Now if we refresh, you can see they're looking a bit better. You can hover over them, but they're kind of ugly. Let's just give them a margin. Let's space them out a little. Say margin 0.5 rem. That should basically push them out about 8 pixels, but together about 16. We then want some padding of the same 0.5 rem and about 1 rem on the sides to give it that sort of rectangular feel. We then finally want to just say transition 0.4s. Oh, and don't forget the border radius of 0.5 rem. Let's just move that up there. There we go. And break that down. I break it all down just so you can kind of see the different segments. This is like the styling, this is the resets, and this is the transition animations. And there you go. That's looking pretty good. Let's font size up a little. Font size 1.125 rem. There you go. Bit bigger, slightly bigger, not too much bigger, but bigger. We then want to because when you hover over these, they do nothing, they don't look great. So let's do a button. And let's just say on hover, what we want to do is just set the opacity to 0.7. So now when you hover over them, you can see they fade out slightly. Oh, I just deleted that. And then we're going to say button active. So this is what happens when you click down a button. We're then going to say background color far dark. Let's do far dark. So now when we click it down, you can see it changes to that. So it's kind of like it gets pressed. So it's like boop, boop, beep, beep, boop, boop. And there you go. That's our CSS done. So that was some quick CSS. Now let's move on to the JavaScript. Now this is the fun part. So JavaScript is my favorite part of any project. And up here, we're just going to say we're going to create some global variables. Now in here, we're going to have a constant. So there's 3 different types of variables: constant, let, and var. Now we're going to use constant because we cannot change it. And we're just going to go document.querySelector. And we're going to get our watch.time element. So that's just going to grab this element right here, this diff, and that's going to store it inside of a variable. We then want to get some more. We're going to get the start button, and it's going to be equal to document.getElementById, and we're just going to say start. We're then going to copy this, and we're going to paste it 2 more times, and I'm just going to say stop, and it's going to say stop. And then I'm going to highlight this one, Control D to highlight both here, and I'm just going to say reset. And there you go. So that's now looking pretty good. We've got our buttons there. We then need to get some let variables, ones which we can change, and that's going to be our seconds because we're going to use this our counter. We could name this counter. I've named it seconds. I don't know. Name it what you want. It's up to you. And then we're going to get our interval. Now, our interval is going to be equal to null by default. So this is going to be what actually ticks up our timer every second. Okay, so now we've got our variables done. We're going to need some event listeners, but let's set these here. Event listeners. Right, and we're going to have 3. But we're not going to do those here. Let's do our timer function. So we need a function that every single second it will tick up and basically display the correct time. So let's just say update the timer. So we'll create a function called timer, and we're then going to pass through just like that. There we go. Now in here we need to say seconds plus plus. So what this is going to do, it's going to tick up our seconds. Every time this runs, it's going to call this and tick it up by 1. So that means every time it's called, this goes to 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. Now once we've got our seconds, we need to actually format it. So we're going to say format our time. And under here, what I'm going to say is let sex, don't take that out of context, let seconds, shorten to SECS, and then we're going to say seconds modulo 60. So what this means is how do I explain what a modulo is? It basically, if this is 1 and this is 1, this will be equal to 0. But if this is 2 and this, actually that doesn't make sense, it will always be equal to whatever the number is. Always equal to 0. Sorry, so if this is 60 and this is 60, it will be equal to 0. But if this is 61 and this is 60 in a modulo, this will now be equal to 1 because we've pretty much taken away only in 60 intervals. I'm not good at explaining that. You should Google what modulo is. That's not, we're now going to do math.floor. Now math.floor basically flattens a number. So if you've got like 6.2, this will pull it to 6. And then we're just going to say seconds divided by 60, which is going to get us our, it's going to get our minutes. So every 60 seconds is equal to a minute, and that's why we divide it by 60, and that will get us our minute. We're then going to let hours equal to the same thing, math.floor, seconds, but this time it's going to be divided by 3,600. Now we could also say 60 times 60 in some parentheses or brackets, but I'm just going to say 3,600 because that's what it equals. I don't want to be making my JavaScript do any more maths than it has to. And there we go. So that's that. That's now set. We then want to say, so let me just say it. We're going to say timeout dot inner text. I don't like using inner HTML. We're going to use some backticks. So our backticks, I can't remember the actual name for these, but it means we can use variables inside of them. And we're just going to say hours. We're going to say mins. And then if you've guessed it already, this is going to say seconds. And there we go. So that's now going to set. So if we call, let's say timer like this, and let's set our seconds to, let's say, 3,743. Save, refresh. You can see that gives us 1 hour, 62, which does not make sense because that's broken there, and 24. So what this is doing, it's saying we've got 1 hour, 62 minutes, which should be, no, that is wrong. That should be 2 hours then. No, because that's what 3,700. I have blew my mind. Right, guys, it looks like I've got my equate or my calculation wrong here. I actually need to do the hours before. So I feel like this is going like this. We've got to do it in reverse. So then we've got our hours, which is seconds divided by 3,600. But when we get our seconds, obviously, we're not saying like we're not thinking about the hours. So what we need to do here is essentially take our seconds minus our hours divided by, times by 3,600 and then divide by that. So we need to actually do this also in brackets. So this is a bit confusing. But now if we refresh, you can see we now get 3 minutes, 1 hour and 3 minutes, which is perfect. So if we made this 6,700, refresh, it's 1 hour 57, that was wrong maths by me. So 3,600, so this will need to be 7,400, say. And there you go, 2 hours, 3 minutes and 21 seconds. We add another 60 to this, 4 minutes, and there you go, that's working great. So there you go, so this, I forgot to calculate taking away the hours from the 60, but we're good, we fixed it now. So that's now our equation done, but obviously this isn't actually counting up, and also, you can see here, this says 2 and this says 4, but it kind of looks odd here, right? Now, what we want is we want to basically have our numbers in front. So we want to add 0 in front. So we want to say if seconds is less than 10, then what we're going to do is say seconds is equal to 0 plus, if I can type, where's my, there, sex there. And then we're going to copy this and we're going to do the same for hours and minutes. So we're going to say mins, and then here hours. And there you go. Now we refresh, you can see we get 020421, which is perfect. And that looks good there. Let's put that 40. And there you go, 000. So it all works. It's all now applying. So let's put this back to 0 and reset. So you can see this is called here. Obviously timer is there. And now, if we now go to, obviously if we now reset this, and we've got our seconds and function timer, there we go. So now we need to actually come up with our start function. So we need to go function, start. And what we need to do in here is we just need to say if interval exists, return. That means it means it's already running, we don't need to start again. Instead, we're just going to say interval is, but if it's not running, we'll say interval is equal to set interval timer 1000. So now this is going to call our timer function every 1000 milliseconds or 1 second. So that's going to create our timer. So now, if we go back up here and in our event listeners, we can say start button.add event listener, and we can say click. We can just say start, just like that. And now we refresh and we click start. We should start seeing the timer click up. The one issue we're going to have with this though is obviously we can't stop it. It's never going to stop. If we click start, we're not going to start multiple timers. It's going to run at the same pace. It's never going to keep going. And there you go. So that's working, and we can, but we need to be able to stop it. So let's create our stop function. We're going to say function stop. And what this is going to do is we're just going to say clear interval. So what this is going to do is we're going to pass our interval in here, and it's just going to clear it. It's going to set it back to zero our interval. It's going to stop it altogether. We then need to set our interval to be equal to null, so it stops counting. So this stops it actually counting and calling this, and this actually sets the variable back to null, so this can then be started again. We now need to say function reset, and let's get our reset code here. So we're going to call, if we hit reset, we're going to hit stop. We want to call the stop function, because if we don't, it's going to keep counting even after we reset. If you want that functionality, then that's great. Use that. And let's go to seconds now. We're going to set that back to 0, and then we're going to take our time element dot inner text, and we're going to set that back to 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Just like that. So let's refresh. Let's hit start. Let's get it to 2 seconds. Let's stop. Stop. Oh, we forgot to actually add the event list. Well, I forgot to add the event listens. I can't blame you guys for that. That was me. So let's copy this twice. Let's change this to be, say, stop, and this to say reset. Now let's restart. Let's hit start, and here we go. 1, 2, stop, and there you go. It stops. Now if we hit start again, it will continue going. We can hit stop. We can hit start. Let's say it gets to a few. We can reset, and there you go. Now that is how we build a stopwatch inside of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now guys, I hope you have learned some new tricks, tips, or even just a similar understanding of any of these languages. If that's the case, then I have done my job correctly. So guys, thank you all for watching this video. Do not forget to leave a thumbs up, smash that subscribe button, and leave a comment down below. Now, if you're new around here, you may not know, you may or may not know, we have a Discord server where we help each other code, we help each other hang out, you know. It's just a general coding community. It's pretty awesome, so you can join it down below. Link is in the description. And finally, we have just released memberships on the channel. So if you want to support me, support my content, and support what we do even more, then head down below this video and there's a join button. Click that, and it will give you the option to see all the options we have with all the extra benefits and perks you can get by becoming a member. So guys, thank you for watching this video, and peace out.